Imagine standing right here on this perfect crescent of sand, feeling that warm, gentle breeze, listening to the rhythmic sigh of the ocean. It's the image of eternal peace, a slice of paradise untouched by time. This is what we all dream of when we think of a tropical shoreline. But what if I told you that this very scene, this perfect moment of natural beauty, is hiding a secret so powerful, so urgent, that it changes everything you think you know about this paradise? This isn't just a beautiful view, it's a ticking clock. Every grain of sand, every swaying palm, every creature in the tide pool is part of a delicate, living system that is counting down. We've been sold a dream of endless summers and unchanging coasts. But the reality, backed by startling and undeniable data, is that these places are on the front line of a silent transformation. This isn't a distant future scenario. The changes are happening right now, measured in millimeters of sea level rise, in degrees of ocean temperature, and in the quiet disappearance of species we thought would always be here. Today, we're going to go beyond the postcard. We're going to decode this landscape. We'll walk from the deep ocean onto the beach, into the groves, and uncover the intricate, interconnected web of life that makes a tropical shoreline work. And then we'll confront the hard data, the satellite imagery, the decades of research from marine biologists and geologists that reveals how this web is unraveling. This journey will change how you see every beach vacation photo, every tourism advertisement. By the end of this video, you won't just see palm trees swaying, you'll hear their whisper, a story of resilience, fragility, and a race against time that involves every single one of us. So take a mental step onto this sand with me. Forget what you know for a moment. Let's look closer. Think deeper, because understanding this paradise is the first and most crucial step to saving it. The story of this tropical shoreline is ultimately a reflection of our own story on this planet. Consider for a moment the sheer engineering marvel you're looking at. This beach isn't just a random pile of sand. It's a meticulously sorted, constantly shifting repository of geological history. Every single grain has a story. That fine, white sand, it's not there by accident. A significant portion of it, especially on the most iconic tropical beaches, is actually the lifelong work of parrotfish. These colorful creatures spend their days scraping algae off coral, ingesting tiny bits of rock and coral skeleton, and processing them through their digestive systems to excrete as pure, white sand. One parrotfish can produce hundreds of pounds of sand a year, so that soft cushion under your feet is essentially fish poop, refined over millennia. But the sand also comes from further afield, from volcanic eruptions that happened centuries ago, from shells ground down by endless wave action, from minerals washed down from inland mountains by rivers. The specific composition, the grain size, the color, all of it tells scientists about the ocean currents, the health of nearby reefs, and the geological activity of the region. The slope of the beach, the way it gently curves, is a perfect equation of energy dissipation. The waves deliver energy, and the sand absorbs and redistributes it. This system is in a perpetual state of dynamic equilibrium. In the wet season, storms pull sand offshore, creating underwater sandbars. In the dry, calm season, gentle waves push that sand back onto the beach. It's a breathing rhythm, but this rhythm is being disrupted. Sea level rise, caused by the thermal expansion of warming oceans and the melting of land-based ice, is providing a constant, relentless push. The ocean is quite literally gaining ground. The natural buffer zone that allows the beach to breathe the area between the low tide and high tide marks is being compressed. Stronger, more frequent storms, another data point linked to warmer ocean surfaces, act like bulldozers, eroding the beach faster than the calm seasons can rebuild it. Coastal engineers have data showing erosion rates accelerating across the tropics. That dream beachfront property, its foundations are literally washing away. The sand, that beautiful, complex product of nature's patience, is being lost to deeper waters or becoming coarser and less hospitable as the finer grains are washed out. This is the first layer of the secret. The very ground of paradise is shifting beneath our feet, and the data maps show the coastline retreating, meter by meter, year by year. Now let's turn to those iconic sentinels, the palm trees swaying in the breeze. They seem like the very symbol of resilience, bending but never breaking. But their sway tells a more nuanced story. These are often coconut palms or other salt-tolerant species, and they are masters of survival in a harsh, saline, windy environment. Their roots are shallow but widespread, forming a dense mat to anchor them in the loose sand and to quickly capture rainfall before it percolates down. Their trunks are flexible to withstand hurricane-force winds. Their leaves are designed to channel rainwater directly to their root systems. They are perfect for this niche. However, they are living at the edge of their tolerance. The breeze they need is not just for aesthetics. It aids in pollination and temperature regulation. But as atmospheric data indicates, wind patterns are changing. Periods of eerie calm, followed by intensifying storms, disrupt their natural cycles. More insidious is the salt. Sea level rise doesn't just mean higher water. It means saltwater intrusion into the freshwater lens. Islands and coastal areas have a delicate, floating layer of fresh water that sits atop denser saltwater. This lens is recharged by rainfall and is the sole source of fresh water for the vegetation, including these palms. As the sea rises, it pushes the freshwater lens up, making it thinner. In some areas, scientists monitoring well data have observed the lens shrinking and becoming brackish. At the same time, more powerful storm surges can overtop the beach, flooding the root zones with straight salt water, which is toxic to most plants. The palms start to show signs of stress, yellowing fronds, stunted growth, burned leaf tips. They are literally being poisoned by the very ocean they symbolize. Furthermore, their reproductive cycle is under threat. The coconut, a marvel of oceanic dispersal, relies on falling into the sea and floating to a new shore. But now, many beaches are lined with seawalls, resorts, and groins that trap the coconuts, preventing natural regeneration. In other places, invasive pests whose ranges have expanded due to warmer temperatures attack the palms. So the graceful sway is not just a dance of leisure. It's the motion of a fighter, battling changing chemistry, thirst, and physical barriers. They are the canaries in the coal mine for the terrestrial part of this ecosystem. When the palms start to die, it's a signal that the foundational freshwater system of the entire coastal strip is compromised. But the shoreline is not just sand and palms. Between the high tide line and the inland vegetation lies a critical and often overlooked zone, the strand line. This is where the ocean's gifts and punishments are deposited. It's a line of seaweed, driftwood, seeds, and sometimes, tragically, plastic. This rack, as it's called, is not litter in the natural cycle. It's a nutrient pump. As it decomposes, it fertilizes the poor, sandy soil, allowing pioneering plants to take root and begin the process of stabilizing the dunes. Insects, crustaceans, and birds feast on this material. It's the ocean feeding the land. However, data from coastal cleanup organizations and marine studies shows a horrifying shift in the composition of this rack. It is now increasingly composed of microplastics, fishing nets, and other anthropogenic debris. This plastic can leach chemicals into the sand, altering soil chemistry and harming the very organisms that are supposed to benefit. Sea turtles, which rely on dark, quiet beaches to lay their eggs, can be disoriented by plastic debris or by the lights from coastal development that inevitably follow. The temperature of the sand itself is crucial for determining the sex of turtle hatchlings. Warmer sand produces more females. With rising air and sand temperatures recorded meticulously by conservation groups, we are seeing dangerously skewed sex ratios, threatening future populations. The strand line, therefore, is a ledger It records the health of the ocean and the impacts of humanity. A natural strand line tells a story of fertility and connection. The modern strand line, cluttered with plastic and toxic materials, tells a story of pollution and disconnection, directly impacting the reproductive success of iconic species and the very nutrient cycle that sustains the coastal fringe. To truly understand this shoreline, we must look offshore, beneath the turquoise surface. The color of that water, that breathtaking azure, is itself a function of a lack of suspended particles and the reflection of light off a white sandy bottom. But it's what lies just beyond the break that is the true guardian of this coast, the coral reef. This isn't just a pretty garden for snorkelers, it is a living, breathing breakwater. Coral reefs absorb up to 97% of wave energy. They are the reason this beach is calm and not a pounding, erosive surf. They are biodiversity hotspots, supporting 25% of all marine life. The connection is direct. The health of the beach is utterly dependent on the health of the reef. And here, the data is not just alarming, it's catastrophic. Ocean acidification, caused by the sea absorbing excess atmospheric CO2, makes it harder for corals to build their limestone skeletons. It's like trying to build a house while someone slowly dissolves your bricks. More acutely, ocean warming causes coral bleaching when water temperatures rise just 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above the seasonal average. The symbiotic algae that live in the coral tissues and give them color, and up to 90% of their energy are expelled. The coral turns bone white and begins to starve. Mass bleaching events, once rare, are now occurring with devastating frequency. Satellite sea surface temperature data and aerial surveys show reefs turning from vibrant cities to white graveyards in a matter of weeks. A bleached reef can die, and once it does, the structure begins to erode. Without the reef, wave energy slams directly into the shore. The sand production from parrotfish and other bioeroders plummets. The entire coastal defense and supply system collapses. The tropical shoreline you're picturing cannot exist without its coral guardian. The data shows a global decline of roughly 50% of live coral cover since the 1950s, with predictions of up to 90% loss if warming continues. This isn't a potential future. The loss is ongoing, measurable, and accelerating. On the other side of the beach, often in more sheltered, muddy estuaries, lies another unsung hero, the mangrove forest. With their tangled, stilt-like roots rising from the water, they may not look as idyllic as the open beach, but they are arguably more vital. Mangroves are the nursery of the sea. Their root systems provide shelter for juvenile fish, crustaceans, and mollusks, many of which will later migrate to the reef and the open ocean. They are phenomenal carbon sinks, sequestering up to 4 times more carbon per hectare than tropical rainforests. And crucially for the shoreline, they are a biological seawall. Their dense roots bind the soil, dissipate wave energy, and trap sediments, literally building land, and protecting the coast from erosion during storms. Studies following major typhoons and hurricanes have consistently shown that coastlines with intact mangrove forests suffer significantly less damage and loss of life than those where mangroves have been cleared for shrimp farms or development yet. Global mangrove loss is precipitous, driven by aquaculture, coastal development, and pollution. The loss of mangroves means the loss of a buffer, a nursery, and a carbon sponge, making the entire shoreline system more vulnerable. So, the tropical shoreline is a triad: the beach itself, the offshore reef, and the inshore mangrove. They are 3 pillars holding up paradise. The terrifying truth from the data is that all 3 pillars are under simultaneous, intense stress. The reef is bleaching, the mangroves are being cleared, and the beach is caught in the middle, eroding away. This is the interconnected crisis that the postcard never shows. This brings us to the great paradox: humanity's love for these places is a primary driver of their destruction. The very desire to be near this beauty fuels an economic model that often undermines it. Coastal development for tourism requires clearing mangroves, dredging harbors, and building seawalls and jetties that disrupt natural sand movement. The sewage and runoff from resorts can trigger algal blooms that smother reefs. The demand for seafood leads to overfishing, removing key species like herbivorous fish that keep algae in check on the reefs, allowing them to overgrow and kill corals. The carbon emissions from the flights and infrastructure that bring us to these paradises are the same emissions warming the oceans and acidifying the water. It's a devastating feedback loop. We are, in a very real sense, loving these places to death. But here's where the data also offers a glimmer of hope, a path forward. Because the same scientific monitoring that tracks the decline is also identifying solutions. We now have precise data on which reef areas are most resilient to warming, often places with naturally cooler water upwellings or strong currents. These can be targeted as climate refuges and given the highest protection. Marine protected areas, MPAs, with strong enforcement are proven by ecological studies to increase fish biomass and coral recovery. Coral restoration techniques, like growing corals in nurseries and transplanting them, are showing promise, especially when using naturally heat-resistant coral strains identified through genetic research. Mangrove reforestation projects are highly successful. Mangroves are hardy and grow relatively quickly when given a chance. Coastal engineering is learning to work with nature instead of against it. Living shorelines that use native plants, oyster beds, and strategically placed rock instead of concrete walls are more effective, cheaper, and ecologically beneficial in the long term. The data is clear. Top-down, heavy-handed intervention often fails. But community-based management, where local people who depend on the coast are empowered to protect it, has a stellar track record. From the coral taboo areas in Fiji to community-managed mangrove forests in Bangladesh, the results show that when people have a direct stake in the health of the ecosystem, they become its most ardent defenders. The data also points to us, the viewers. The single biggest lever is reducing global carbon emissions. Every fraction of a degree of warming avoided means less coral bleaching, slower sea level rise, weaker storms. Our individual and collective choices matter. But beyond that, being conscious consumers matters. Choosing resorts with genuine sustainability credentials verified by third parties, not just their own marketing, supporting responsible fishing, reducing plastic use, and donating to legitimate conservation organizations that use science-based strategies, all these actions have a ripple effect. The data on the power of informed consumer pressure is significant in shifting corporate and tourism industry practices. So, what is the new story of the tropical shoreline? It is no longer a static postcard of endless leisure. It is a dynamic, living, and fighting ecosystem. It is a landscape of profound interconnection where a fish's digestion creates the beach, a forest of roots guards the coast, and a city of corals calms the waves. It is also a landscape under siege, with every component sand, palm, reef, and mangrove facing measurable, data-driven threats. But most importantly, it is a landscape of hope and agency. This isn't a eulogy, it's a mobilization order. The story is still being written, and we are all authors. This brings me to you right now, watching this. You are not a passive observer. Your gaze, your interest is the first step. You now hold information that most tourists do not. You see the hidden clock. You understand the pillars. You recognize the paradox. With that knowledge comes responsibility, but also power. Your power lies in your voice, your choices, and your attention. This is where we move from observation to action. I want you to do 3 very specific things today. First, become a translator of this landscape. The next time you see a picture of a tropical beach, or if you're lucky enough to visit one, don't just see the beauty, see the system. Notice the rack line. Ask about the health of the reef. Look for the mangroves, and then tell that story. Share this video. Talk about the parrotfish and the freshwater lens. Break the illusion of the static postcard and spread the real, dynamic, urgent story. Use your social media not just to show a sunset, but to explain what that sunset illuminates a complex world worth fighting for. Second, audit your own impact. Make one permanent change. It could be switching to a reef-safe sunscreen, oxybenzone and octinoxate-free, committing to drastically reduce your single-use plastic, or choosing seafood from sustainable sources. Research the environmental policies of travel companies before you book. These are not small things. Aggregated across millions of people, they shift markets and protect ecosystems. Third, and most crucially, support the boots on the ground. Find and support one organization doing the hard, scientific, unglamorous work of protecting these places. It could be a local community group planting mangroves, an international science organization monitoring reef health, or a policy group advocating for marine protected areas. Do not just like their posts. If you can, donate. Even a small, monthly donation provides predictable funding for their vital work. I will put links to several vetted, data-driven organizations in the description below. Please check them out. The tropical shoreline is not just a place we visit, it is a mirror of our relationship with the natural world. Its fate is intertwined with ours. Protecting it isn't about saving a vacation spot. It's about preserving a fundamental life support system for our planet, a system that regulates climate, protects coasts, and feeds millions. That gentle breeze swaying the palms carries a message. It's a call for a new kind of loved one that is informed, respectful, and active. A love that doesn't just consume beauty but actively defends the conditions that create it. So, let's rewrite the story together. Let's be the generation that listened to the whisper of the palms and the sigh of the waves, understood their meaning, and took decisive action. Let's ensure that these shores in all their vibrant, interconnected glory don't just exist in our memories, but thrive for generations to come. The clock is ticking, but we have the tools, the data, and the collective will to change its course. It starts with you, right here, right now. What will you do?